Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is the episode number 109. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented on the show, everyone who has subscribed and continues to listen over the years. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment provides first-class weight rooms and has earned an exceptional reputation of providing the finest quality, design, and customer service. Being a direct manufacturer, the team at Samson brings full customization capabilities and not only branding, but in custom equipment needed to execute your next project. From racks, barbells, and plates to dumbbells, benches, flooring, storage, and much more, Samson equipment is durable and made to order from premium grade materials, all built from scratch, start to finish. Samson Equipment provides professional weight room solutions for all your strength and conditioning needs. See the Samson standard for yourself and learn more at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus is trusted by the top strength sport athletes and lifters in the world. Cerberus's wide range of products are made by athletes for athletes, truly living up to its moniker, made by the strong for the strong. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength and conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to use promo code STRENGTH_GAME at checkout to receive 10% off your next order at CerberusStrength.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. The kilt is a tradition dating back centuries. Worn by nobles, military, and fashionistas, the kilt has been through it all, at times banned, at other times celebrated. For over 25 years, Sport Kilt has been striving to perfect their version of the Scottish classic to create the ultimate garment of fashion and function. Sport Kilt offers a wide range of universal and clan tartans, as well as custom sport kilts and an excellent selection of accessories and apparel to complement the kilt wearer. Check out the full line of kilts and join the kilt life at sportkilt.com and be sure to use promo code TSG to save on your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Kerry Overfelt. Kerry is the owner and strength coach of Darkside Athletics. Located in Bardstown, Kentucky, Darkside Athletics is a multipurpose training center that meets all athletes and clients' needs. He has owned and operated the gym for over 11 years now. Getting to start training people and writing programs back in 1996, he then began his personal training business in 2001 and has been working with athletes, clients, and training groups ever since. In addition to coaching in his facility, KO takes to the field where he works with many Highland Games athletes, coaching them both in person and online. He's also a Games Athletics director, running competitions in his home state of Kentucky, in addition to being the author of the Masters Highland Games Training Manual. A former college football player at Campbellsville University, Overfelt has trained and competed in bodybuilding before finding his true talent in Highland Games. He went from a self-taught thrower to professional Highland Games athlete. He boasts such accolades as being the 2013 Masters World Champion, 2009 U.S. National Champion, three-time North American Champion, and has regularly saw him placing high in the national rankings, including a stint from 2006 to 2010, where he was ranked in the top 5 consecutively in the U.S. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Kerry Overfelt. What's going on, everybody? Today, I've got Kerry Overfelt on the show. What's going on today, man?
How you doing, Nick?
Hey, I'm excited. We talked a little bit before. You just got off a nice guys trip vacation. We got to kind of throw together. You had to critique me and judge me at the down at the Panama City Beach Games, but
Yep.
it was good to share the field with you again, and I'm excited to have you on today. So, kind of without any further ado, really want to get into how you became a Highland Games athlete and a professional Highland Games athlete, at the very least. Like, what got you involved in strength training, lifting, kind of leading to your throwing career?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm honored to be on here. I really appreciate you having me on. Well, that being said, I got started actually kind of in high school. I started getting into strength training. I was really enamored with bodybuilding and just kind of fell in love with that sport a little bit, and did some teenage bodybuilding shows back in like 90 and 91. That was my first shows. Had no idea what I was doing, had no coach, had nobody helping me with a diet, nobody helping me with anything. It was just pretty much blind going into these shows. And I'll be the first to tell you, I was awful. I was never lean enough. I was, nothing was ever really right. I just kind of walked into the show just like some of these people do with Highland Games. They just show up on the field. That was kind of me. I had some people in my gym. Is a little small gym in Glasgow, Kentucky, Active Life Gym. And I'll give big props to Brett Underwood in just a minute, because he's how I found Highland Games. So working out at that gym, we were just messing around one day, and I'd been to school one year, and I came back, and I just didn't think school was for me. So I was working out. And one day, Brett, who owned the gym, and he comes over and he says, hey, we need to try this. We need to try these Highland Games. And at the time, Glasgow, Kentucky had a really big Highland game that they were, putting on every year. So we went over. They were actually doing a clinic. J.M. Kuno. Nobody listening to this show will know who J.M. Kuno is unless you're about 80. So J.M. is still with us. Thank God. He's in Nashville. Him and Larry Satchville are good buddies, and I talk to J.M. every now and then. But J.M. ran this clinic, and he was showing us how to do the throws and other stuff. Up until that point, we had the equipment and was throwing, but it was way off. I threw a little bit of shot and discus in high school, but that's like everybody throws in the state of Kentucky. You don't have a coach. They throw you the disc, they throw you the shot, go over there and throw for an hour. Okay, so there was no coaching, no technique, and so you just reinforced bad habit after bad habit. So we got to Highland Games. I thought, okay, I should be able to throw some of this stuff because, I've done discus and it kind of looks the same. No, not even close. So we got kind of started, and that was in the mid-90s, and I did a game as an amateur, and then that was it. I never thought much about it anymore. As fate would have it, I guess I got antsy and decided I want to go back to school, but I wanted to play college football. So I went to Campbellsville University. They had recruited me out of high school. So I went to them and, told them I desire to, play football again. And so I got lucky, and they brought me on, and I played football there I was there about 5 years, actually, because I had to take a hiatus year, but ended up working out really good for me. When I went back on my senior year, I was captain, and we won a conference championship, first team to ever make the playoffs. And of course, during all this time, I'm still studying everything I can study about weight training, strength training. And then it switched from bodybuilding to performance training. So, and I actually was training some of the guys on my football team in 95 and 96, for the upcoming football season, just doing different stuff, from what I'd read and looked at and seen. So got a real big start in strength and conditioning kind of there doing with that stuff. And then once football was over, I was like, well, I don't really want to play softball all summer, and I don't, want to do your normal stuff. And I said, I'm gonna do some Highland Games. Let me just try it. And I just fell in love with it. The people, the challenge of it. Like, I wasn't good, and for whatever reason, if something's hard for me, I don't give up. I want to dive in even more to it. So I tell everybody all the time, the reason I was good is because I was so stupid. I was horrible. I should have quit a long time ago, but I didn't. I just kept beating my head against the rock until I finally figured it out. Anyways, the one VHS tape I had was of the Celtic Classic. Oh my God. It was back in like early 90s or 91, 92, something like that. Had all the legends on there. Alistair Gunn was on there. Jim McGoldrick. Vieira was on there. Paul, Big Paul Ferenzi, rest your soul, was on there. So I'm watching all these guys throw, and I'm trying to mimic that in the backyard. And so I'm still in school. Glasgow games come around, and I went, and I'd been practicing a little bit because Brett Underwood, that owned the gym in Glasgow, was the athletic director now for the Glasgow games. So I could get the equipment from him and practice. So I had a little bit of practice under my belt, went over, did a game, and I thought, man, I'm going to do this once football's over. So once football's over in 97, I just decided I was going to do a game, and happened to be Jacksonville, Florida.
Hey.
They used to do it on the North Florida campus, which was so cool. Because you had all these college kids coming out watching, and they were partying. And of course, at that time, I just got out of college. I was older because I'd waited and went back to school, but it was still it was fun hanging out and doing stuff down there on the campus. And that was one of my first games. And, I felt pretty good about it. I thought, okay, I'm throwing some, I didn't know what decent numbers was. We didn't have internet to tell us, oh, this guy's doing this and this guy's doing this. And any of that stuff. We sure didn't have any instructional videos. So everything I was doing was, I'm watching Nick throw. That's how I need to throw. So, hey, calm down. Sorry. Hey, so that's really got my start. So I'm going to go to Jacksonville, Florida. And I mean, I got man hands. Hang on one second.
You're good.
Hey, shut up. Get over here. Nope. I knew it was going to happen.
No worries.
So I got down there, and the first person I see, and you guys haven't had the honor of seeing Mike Neese at his biggest. Mike Neese was an old thrower. He works for Carolina Fitness now, played in the USFL, played at UT Chattanooga. Mike was a monster. He's 6'3", 6'4". His back, I just remember looking across his back in traps and thinking, that's two people. Like, he's that big. He's huge. Then there's a dude that's about my height, and his name was, and I'm not making this up, I've got witnesses, A. Walt Porkrant. Not making that up. And that name says exactly how he looked. He was 5'10" and probably 325. And about 100 of that was just neck and traps. And he was just built like a box. But, man, was he explosive and strong. You got those two, and then I look over, and I'm like, all right, I got a chance, because I saw Mark Howell. Mark is a whopping 175 or 180. I don't know what he weighed then. And, Mark's what, 5'6", 5'7". I did not realize that dude had better technique than anybody on the field. So my day got really ugly fast. Watching these guys throw and, doing everything. Now, listen, I had a great time there, but I knew I had a lot of work to do. And once I got done with the game, and they actually kind of discouraged me. They were like, you sure you want to throw with the A's? we got a lot of really good guys. And I was like, yes, I want to throw with the A's. And I'll get to a point on that just in a second. But I didn't want to throw somewhere I could win, if that makes sense. I wanted to challenge, and that was, really my first game out. But that was an eye opener. And then after that, I just fell in love. I mean, then I started looking, and then I met people. I met my boy, Doug Grissom, who, props to Doug Grissom. He's probably one of the guys that probably helped me a ton in the sport coming up. Doug would call me. At that time, I was out of school. I was substitute teaching at a school and coaching football. And Doug would call me on a Thursday and say, hey, there's a game in Mississippi. Let's go. And Nick, I would literally be like, dude, I've got $38 to my name. And he'd say, just get to Atlanta. I'll make us get the rest of the way. You got it. So I would drive to Atlanta in my junky little car, praying it didn't break down. And I'd jump in the van with Doug, and, man, we'd tear out. Crazy story about Doug and I, we did a 24-hour trip nonstop. He drove from his house. I met him in Paducah, Kentucky. He picked me up, and we didn't stop driving until we arrived in Colorado Springs. Not the best, not optimal for best throwing performance on a Saturday, I'll tell you, because we left on a Thursday, drove all the way Thursday night and most through Friday. And when we got there, we were dead. So you can imagine on Saturday, how fantastic we were. But, we were both younger at that point in time, and we just were invincible. So Doug Grissom, that was a big part of me getting started, is Doug would just call, and he'd almost make me go to these games. And they were all over. I didn't realize how many games there were. So we were traveling all over the South together, doing games, and we would talk about what we need to do better at, how we need to train this. And in every game, I would watch somebody that was good at something, and I would just pick at their brain. Let me have that. Let me, tell me what you can. And I look back, and so much of it was wrong information. And one big thing I see now, and it's always what I've said, amateurs, quit taking advice from amateurs. There's too much access to pros nowadays to ask an amateur how to do something. And I'm not bagging on amateurs, but there is a reason there's pros and there's a reason there's amateurs. And I was an amateur, and I wasn't a good amateur. It took me 5 years of just everything I had pouring into that to eventually become pro. And leading up to that, I just kept trying to get better and better and better. And I think it was my fourth year, Glasgow had pros, and they had some of the best pros in the world coming in. We had Zylstra was there for like 3 years in a row. And if you've never seen him throw weight over bar, man, it's special. Because he was hitting 17.6 in the early 2000s standing, like it was child's play. So Zylstra would, throw. And then my GOAT is Ryan Vieira. You'll never make me believe there's anybody better. Now, I will say Spencer Tyler's thrown farther, but that man would log 30 games a year for years in. There ain't a pro. You combine 6 pros right now, they wouldn't do 30 games in 2 years. So to me, Ryan's the guy. And I asked Ryan if he could come over and watch my weight for distance and critique it. And he came over and he did. And I, at that time I was getting pretty good at the heavyweight. Came over, he helped me. He took time out of his day when he didn't have to, and he came over and helped me out. And I'll never forget that. As it went on, Ryan and I became, we really back and forth training modules and different things like that. And he was kind of a mentor to me, really helped me out. And I picked one of the big reasons was Ryan was the best, but Ryan and I are built very similar. We both look like SpongeBob SquarePants. So, you want to try to find somebody you throw like that you're built like. So getting back to, when I got ready to turn pro, I'll give my boy Miles Wetzel big props here. We're about my 4th year in, And I was like, this is my year. I'm going to turn pro. I'm going to do a couple amateur games. And if I hit 15 in the weight over bar standing, and I go 40 in the heavyweight, and I'm close to 80 in the lightweight, those are some numbers I need. I'm going to be pretty good. And I knew my hammer would be okay. The caber would come along, and my sheath was already good. I think I'd just broken like the 16 and 20 pound sheath amateur world record at that time. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. I went to Alabama. Went to Alabama for this game, and Nick, I'm having one of those days. Everything is just clicking. I break the amateur 56 world record. So 56 weight for distance, I break the world record, and I'll be the first to tell you we had a favorable little field. So that's probably why the record got broke. But I broke the record. Everything that day was going great. We go over to WAB, and it's going to be our last event. So I get to 13, cruise over pretty easy. And there was the AMs had already gotten done, but they had one guy left, and they said, hey, there's only one guy left. Can he throw with you guys? I'm like, sure. Well, Miles gets up out of this chair, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the hell is that? He was huge. And when I say huge, Nick, I mean huge. Everybody, you see Miles now, but I'm going to tell you, he was a very intimidating figure when he stood up out of that chair. 6'3", 6'4", 275 pounds, and he's just veins running everywhere. He grabs that weight. He walks out 10 steps away from the bar. I'm like, man, what's this jackass doing? Who taught him to throw? Well, just by chance, Peter Goodmanson was taking classes at Alabama, and Miles and him were training partners, and Peter got Miles into the game. So Miles steps out 10 steps from this bar. He slings this sucker like a small baby. I mean, chucks the hell out of it. This thing goes up and arcs and goes over, and we're at 13 feet. I'm like, he'll never do that much higher. Yeah. 14 feet, same thing. We get to 15 feet. Here I am right underneath the bar. Where's my technique? I pop it. And now at this time too, I also like to let you know, hardly anybody used a rollover bar. Everything was knockoff. That's why games took till 7 o'clock at night. So the knockoff bar was used all over the South. That's because that's what Grandfather Mountain used, so everybody else did. So I cleared 15 on knockoff bar, which, as you know, is probably 16 if you do a rollover bar. Well, then I watch Miles step out 10 paces. He hits 15. And right then and there, I was like, nope, you ain't ready to be a pro. You just let an amateur throw as high as you did right now. And this kid's done, I think Miles may have been his first or second game. And I said right then, nope, I'm not going to turn pro. And that was a huge factor ending up in my success as a pro. If I'd have turned too early, I don't know what would have happened. I waited another year and kept refining my technique and getting better and getting better. And actually the next year at Culloden, I came back and I broke the heavyweight record again. It got broke about 3 months later from a kid out in Portland. But it was, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have tried to get so much better. And watching Miles hit that 15 told me that I need to stay in my lane and stay AM as long as I possibly could. Now, I'll get back to my point about A's and B's. I see all these guys, and I'll call them out. They're trophy hunters. Get your ass out of the B class or C class or whatever novice class it is. You get in the top class, that's how you get better. You're either forced to get better or get out. Because if you're not trying to get better, I don't really want you in our sport. There's 3 classifications of people. You've got your guys that just like to hang out. They don't care how far they throw. They like a beer and their scotch and their corny jokes at the end of the day. And that's totally okay if that's what you want to do. Then you've got number two. These guys, man, I want to get better. Man, I want to get better. Man, I want to get better. Well, you need to drop some weights. You need to work on your footwork. You need to do this. I come back a year later, they've done none of that. Man, I want to get better. Man, I want to get better. Those are the people I can't stand. Don't even talk to me. I just get away from me. Then you've got the third, and that's probably where I fell in. Completely obsessed with being better. And one of the reasons is I wasn't in that clique. I never threw in college. I'm going against guys that have been to Olympic trials, guys that were 4-year lettermen throwing disc and shot and hammer. And I'm over here and they're talking about a 12 o'clock and a 6 o'clock. And I'm looking at what time do you say it was? No, they're talking about positions. I have no idea what you're talking about. So everything I did, I pretty much was self-taught, and I would steal stuff from other people. David Little was an amateur with me, and David was a decathlete. He was a sponsored decathlete from Nike, and he had a beautiful stone throw. David was a hell of an athlete, only weighed about 245. He was a big help in my career and strength and conditioning also, because Dave was in that world. He was a personal trainer. So that's kind of how the start of me kind of going from nothing, to being a pro. And I'll say this, Nick, because I don't want anybody to get this confused. There wasn't a day didn't go through my head at least 100 times how to get better at Highland Games. When I had my personal training business, is I'm personal training people. Each client I would have to do 50 foot turns with. So as I'm sitting there talking to my client, I'm just turning my foot and hip, so that when I land with the weights and the stone, I automatically hit that. So every client I would do 50 with. And they would always ask me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just practicing while we're talking," because I could get that in. It became that I was obsessed, with being better. And then once I got there, that first 5 years, turned pro in 2002 or 2003, I can't remember. Then it was another 5 years of getting better to get to the top of the pro level. So it was just really, for me, it was a complete and utter grind that I enjoyed. It was a process that we don't see a lot nowadays, because everybody wants to jump from, hey, I'm an AM, now I'm a pro. There's a process, and you see it everywhere in every sport. It's not just Highland Games, but you see it in every sport. Everybody wants to be from here to a champion. And, Kobe Bryant said it best one time. He said, if you don't enjoy the process, then you're missing the whole point of this. And for me, that was it, enjoying that process.
No, that's awesome. That's a great kind of introduction and like inception to getting involved in the sport. And I think you're absolutely right too. Like, even within the divisions or the classifications, ABC, like amateur, pros, like it's gotten definitely different since I joined, because they let the little people play in the lightweight classes, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because if you think some of the guys were 2 people, to me they're 4 people. I know some of them, because I'm of the same mindset too. Like, I'll always ask an AD. I was like, hey, are you going to allow lightweights if there's enough people? Because I'm trying to go to nationals and I'm trying to get my numbers up. And
Right.
if they say no, then I'll go throw with the A's. Like, I don't care. I want to throw with the best people. And most of the time, those are the fun ones to hang out with too, because you get rid of some of the chatty people you were talking about too. But
Yep.
no, that's great to kind of hear, because, and you, like, knowing kind of where you were before you decided to go pro, and realizing that when you get to that pro status, like, there still are levels within it. There's the guys that are at the top of the top. There's the guys that just kind of squeak in and like they're just kind of happy to be pro, like, or like they're working, they just don't have the technique, or they don't have whatever it is to kind of get to the next step. But it's not just a full bag, like everybody's a pro, like everybody's the same. It doesn't work like that. And you get in every division. And no, it's cool to hear, because like I'm self-taught when it comes to throwing, and I had nothing in high school, nothing in college whatsoever. And I was doing all the things you were doing. I just had the internet. So it was a little bit different, like but like learning from the wrong, like the same as you say, not learning from the amateurs. I'm
Yeah.
also on the same thing, like learning from some of the pros that are doing something that I have no business doing. Like me trying to copy Spencer Tyler, like spin out of the back, like
Yeah.
and one turn, like a lightweight for distance, like PR. I watched him PR at and set a world record at Queen Mary one year, and I think
Yeah.
he one turned it. I was like, that man should. And then he goes and smokes a cigarette on the side. I was like, that guy, I can't copy him. I
No.
can't do any of this stuff.
Well,
Um,
I jokingly say Spencer Tyler has ruined more throwers than he's helped.
yeah.
And I jokingly say that because people try to do what he did. And not even in the same realm, because I don't never would have the numbers that Spencer had, no matter how long I stayed in the sport. That he's just built to throw. You know, the dude at 300 plus pounds did a muscle up. I mean, that's unheard of. I watched him speed deadlift 700 pounds. I mean, that's again, you know, 725 is the most I've ever deadlifted, and he's over here speed repping it. So he's built to do that. You know, he and I have talked a lot about, you know, his technique and other people's, but yeah, he's an anomaly for sure. And I'm glad to hear you say you trying to do what he did and you couldn't do it, because I see people still trying to do it. I'm like, man, you'd get so much more out of it if you would just do this instead of, you know, trying to be him.
It's different. And like there was a bunch of people that I tried to watch, and then I tried to just kind of, as soon as I focused on one person, I think the person I watched the most was like Matt Vincent when I first
Yeah.
got into it. Because I was like, all right, he's kind of relatively, I have to, no matter what, all the pros, I have to scale back for a smaller guy. So
Sure.
I was always considerate of that when I kind of first got started. But I was real naive when it came to it, because realistically, having no throwing background, I was like, I'll take any advice I can get at this point in time, just because I need to I need to learn a little bit of something. Because even everybody's like, oh well, the easiest is just open stone, and because it's like shot put. I was like, I never threw shot put, so like it's it's not even going to be an easy thing, but no, it's definitely a cool thing. And then also to touch on Ryan Vieira, that was he was someone that I watched a lot too, and I competed with a lot of his guys um, at Stanislaus, like because he'd always send some of his athletes in the off season to just, hey, go try Highland Games, and I think they were enamored by him. So
Yeah.
I would throw against some of those kids in college. I'm like, Jesus, they're not even practicing; they're just going out for fun. And
Yeah.
that was my last games in California, was his inaugural, the memorial game for him.
Oh,
And that was really cool because I won that game. I was supposed to do the strongman competition that day, and some idiot ran it wrong. So I was like, hey, can I compete? And I ran over and I was throwing both events, going back and forth,
oh
and
Lord.
ended up winning that one. And it was such a cool event.
Nice.
I got to end up like a painted image of like one of his like world championships, like of him doing heavyweight for distance.
Ah,
I'll have to
that's
sh
awesome.
I'll have to show it to you. I might have to just gift it to you because I know he means a lot to you. So but no, it was really cool. Like I think more so that people need to take away, like regardless of what sport, regardless if you're in strength conditioning, if you're coaching, or like you have a business, whatever it is, like the importance of kind of working hard for something you haven't done. And like being a self-taught thrower, it's the same as like opening a gym and being like a first-time business owner. Like there's a lot of things that you're going to do that are inherently going to be wrong, or you're going to look back in a couple years and think like, what the hell was I thinking? But if you're not moving the needle forward, if you're not kind of pushing the pace and trying to get better, you're going to more than be stagnant, you're going to be working backwards. So I wanted to kind of touch on this. Like, what were some of like the key things that you really kind of tried to focus on, either physically or mentally, like early in your career? Because you talk about the mindset of like the technique, and you talk about like knowing when to like push yourself up to the next level and challenging yourself. Was there anything like maybe it doesn't have to be throwing related, that like you really tried to focus on when you first got into something that you had no prior experience in, really?
So that's a great question. And I'm hoping I'm going to give you a really good answer, Nick. So I always thought, so we had a saying in coaching football is it ain't about your X's and O's, it's about your Jimmies and Joes. So if you've got more talent on your team, then no matter how good your game plan is, you may end up still losing. Well, in Highland Games, I thought if I am a better athlete than everybody I'm going against, then I'm going to end up okay. I'll be fine. And I put a lot of time and effort into being stronger, more explosive. One of the things guys were telling me was, if you're wanting to be explosive, you've got to do the Olympic lifts. Well, and we can touch on that later, but I didn't use the Olympic lifts. At that point in time, my mobility wasn't, great to do the Olympic lifts. Nobody ever taught me how to do them. And then we're talking about in early, 2000s, our football team did hang cleans, but they looked like everybody's football hang cleans look. Man, that's a hell of a reverse curl. That's what it ends up being. The physical part is what I really focused on. I mean, I just was like, man, just really dive into this, physical part, be stronger, be more explosive, more bouncy. So I really started looking at, and I will say this is probably, and I'm not saying I'm great, but I am a pretty decent strength and conditioning coach. And I pride myself in getting underdogs to a top level, is I watched so much and looked into so much European track training. And, once I started doing that, I started changing my training all the way around. It was kind of a bastardized conjugate system, if you will, but that was my focus. Physical. And it worked for a couple years. I'll throw nutrition in there with that also. I was, really kind of watching, trying to get my nutrition right. Everything was, going to be on point. And what I forgot about was our greatest muscle that we have is our mind. And about 3 years in, I hit a little bit of a lull. And I'd went out, and I'll have to remember what year this is, but I want to say probably 2005 or 6. I went out and spent a week with Ryan at his house. So I flew to California. He came and picked me up. We drove an hour to his house. His family and his wife, who I still am in contact with, she is an absolute angel. They took me in for a week, and Ryan and I, all we did is train. And while I was out there, and this was a shock, Nick, I didn't even know this. We were training and just relaxing. We'd train and relax. So we were doing like 3 trainings a day. We do one in the morning, one after lunch, and then one in the afternoon. And but we just kick back and chill and eat. Well, come Saturday, we're loading up. We're going to a game. I didn't even know we was going to a game. Mike Smith flies in. We pick Mike up, and me, Mike Smith, and Ryan went out to a Sacramento game. And I thought, oh man, I've been training hard all week. I don't know how this is going to go. Had a PR in the stone, had a PR in the lightweight, and had a PR in the heavy hammer. And I ended up finishing second. And there was a lot of really good dudes there. Of course, Ryan won, but man, it was what a fun week that was. And I learned so much. And I still have my notes from being out there with Ryan. So that was the first part of, getting into that, finding your set there. Ryan talked about mindset, and I hadn't thought much about it. When I went out there and trained with Ryan, I was at a game, and I was getting back to the point here. I was down a little bit, and he said, man, you just look you look overtrained. You look like you've done too much. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And by coincidence, about 2 weeks later, Enrique Melgar's guy comes in the gym all the time. His wife, she ran the aerobics program at the gym I was working out. He threw me a book down on the desk. And it was a performance book, and it was an old book. Like this probably was printed out in the 70s. So I grabbed it and I start looking through it. And then I'm like, there's a lot of drills and stuff in it. And I really delved into this book because I was in a slump. Well, this book, the way that it is set forth, and I'll give you the name of it here just in a minute. I don't want to mess the name of it up because I will. I've got it here on the desk. It has these exercises that you do. And one of them was write out your goals for the season. So I did. How far do you want to throw in this? What do you want to do in this? What do you want, So it had whatever your goal was, being more consistent in the sheath, or, hitting 18 in the weight over bar, whatever. So I set all my goals out, and it takes you through these mind clusters where you're brainstorming and you're thinking, who motivated me to do this and why am I doing this? Anyways, started doing all these drills, and then things started becoming different. It was in the weight room, my mindset changed. Now, I didn't really have to do this till I got a little bit older, but my mindset was attack at all times. Well, once I read this book and got through it, I changed my mindset the way I went towards games and other stuff. So I started out with, man, if I can just get better physically, I'll be good. And now, if you were to ask me what was the greatest thing, it was that book. It put things in perspective and made me, bodybuilders are always talking about mind-muscle connection. Well, in this sport, there should be a mind-muscle connection also, but it's, basically a mind-throwing connection. You also learn about your CNS, when you're getting tore down, if your central nervous system is, messed up, if you've done too much. And it's easily done when you're training really heavy and training really explosive. So my mindset had to overcome some of that sometimes. So I would have to say your mindset is first and foremost, number one. And getting back to Ryan, I would watch Ryan make his first attempt at, say, 17 in the weight over bar. Just barely make it. Now, he's spinning at the time. And he just barely would make it. And you're like, oh, I might have a chance today. I'm going to get this guy today. Then we go to 18. Barely make it over 18. And you're like, man, how is he doing this? Then we get to 19 or 18.6. Barely make it over 18.6. And you're sitting here just blowing a gasket on every throw. And Ryan is using just enough juice to get it over. Just enough energy to get it over. And I thought, that son of a bitch, that's how he does this, is he waits. And it actually became now, like with my online people, I'll talk to them about third throw mentality. So if I've got them set up for 3 sets of something, that final set is your final throw. So it's everything you've got in that final set, whether it be explosive or weight or whatever. So that third throw mentality, I got that from Ryan. He doesn't even know it. It was just watching him, and he would do it in a sheaf. He would, height events especially, man, he was just, and he would trick you. He'd give you false hope. He'd throw a 39-foot heavyweight for his first 2 attempts. And you're like, oh yeah, I got him today. Then he goes 46. And you're like, it rips your soul out. And so he would do that basically every game I was with him. And I was with him a lot of games. We probably did about 12, 15 games a year together. And I would just watch him do that. And you just sit there, Nick, helpless. Like your hands and feet are tied, just watching him. Oh, he's getting ready to win this event. And he would. So that mentality, having that mentality is so much more important than the physical part. Now, you've got to have them both. And you'll hear me say it never hurts to be strong. But that mentality is so key in a sport like this, because it's just you versus you. You don't have any help here. So that's what I would say is probably the biggest takeaway there, is that mental part, just that grasping the mental.
Yeah, that's great. Those last 3 points you kind of talked about, like, I think I'll kind of go backwards from them, but like I think a lot of people forget, and even you saying it, like watching Ryan, and I know you don't mean it like in the manner you did, but like all these throws are you versus you.
Yeah.
So if you that's the same point as going out, like the people that are trophy hunting or they don't want to bump up to the next class for whatever reason. Like ultimately, you're only going to improve your own scores and you're only going to have your best games if you challenge yourself and you go to the next division. And I would rather come in dead last and have PRs and throw consistently and be better in the highest class versus be one step down in the B's or C's or whatever it is and just clean up and win every single event, but really not improve. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't want to do that for whatever reason, but that third throw mentality is really cool to see too. And I think when you, like you said, when you're focused on someone else and you're like, oh, well, I just got to beat what this guy is. It's hard when you're chasing someone as good as him because you do like want to think about like that. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
how can I squeak like a couple points and maybe just jump one ahead of him and like maybe I won't get blown out of the water this games. Um, but I mean, practice is where you're supposed to make all those technique changes, and practice is where you're supposed to work on all the things so that when you actually go to a competition, to a games, you can showcase it. And yeah, the gamesmanship that he knows, and the first throw is like, hey, get something on the board. I'm saving it for what it is. The second throw, I'm building it up, and the third one, he just yanks something. But
Yes.
that's all the practice. That was all the practice and training that got him to that point. Like you could see, like I'll know when I go to a games and like I'll foul something like the first throw. I'm like, uh-oh, I haven't practiced enough. If that's what happens, like I zeroed Chief, I no-heighted Chief at the Panama games, and I was like, all right, I threw my fork like back at my like back by my gear bag. And I was like, it's my own damn fault. I know exactly what I did. I just no-heighted Chief to start that was the first event of the day too. And I was like, well, this kind of sucks, but I did it to myself. But yeah, having that mentality and understanding it, I think that's huge for anybody in any sport. And it's different for sport to sport. Like obviously we have three tries um at
Yep.
everything, but football plays, like coaching, anything, like having that mentality, I think is huge. Um, so with you, I bet there's been a pretty big shift in your training. Obviously, like you talked about not learning Olympic lifts that much. And I mean, that makes a great amount of sense because you're learning 9 events for Highland Games. So
Yes.
why would you want to learn another 3 things like for snatch, clean, and jerk? Um, but for you, still competing, like how has your training, your technique, or your mindset maybe shifted a little bit because you're not throwing necessarily like at your pro status numbers, like when you were like at your height. So how does that mindset shift for you? And because I know you love the games, I know you love competing and being around the people, but still to be at your best competitively, how have you had to like shift your focus and maybe shift what you do in the weight and the training room and the weight room so you can still be at your best, even though you're probably never going to hit another lifetime PR.
Well, so I'm going to hit on your last question first, and I don't, I don't know why people don't understand this. When I tell them I'll never hit another PR in my life, and I said this when I was throwing in Bradenton down in Sarasota. I said this to a guy that was in the master's class. Now, first of all, the only reason I threw down in that game in February was I've got a kid that played football that I trained, and he's come back to town. He's working for his dad. He's not done anything in the last couple of years. I trained his dad. He come over, started training with him. Well, he's like, you know what, Kale, I think I'd like to try to do a game. I said, dude, you're built for it. Let's go. So started training for it, and I was training him about like I kind of trained, and I'll get to my training here just a minute. But So the only reason I did the game was because he was. Now, I didn't practice near enough. I haven't thrown in 5 years. And the reason is I had a back surgery in 2019. Had a back surgery in 2019. Hang on one second here. Send a voicemail. There we go. And it made it so that, well, when it started, I couldn't squeeze my glute on my right side. I couldn't do a leg curl with no weight. And if you look, my right calf is atrophied way more than my left. It's because I cannot actually tippy toe on this side, on my right side. So I hadn't thrown in 5 years. So when I came down there to throw, pretty much shits and giggles. But, you know, I made the transition over to bodybuilding to keep something challenging. So before then, in 2017 and 18, I started training again. So that's where I'm going to tell you how my training changed. Because as of right now, honestly, Nick, I have changed my training a little bit because I would like to do another game. And I just want to beat the numbers that I had in February. Again, talking about you versus you. So when in 2018, what I had to change is I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that I did in 2009, you know. So, you know, as you become a master, you've got first of all, your volume needs to cut down. Unless you're just some kind of freak in nature that, you know, can do that. Next thing is your recovery's got to be way more important. And I had to take a few exercises out. And it all depends, I think, on what you have going on. You know, I've got a left shoulder that will need to be replaced probably at some time. So anything overhead, no, I can't do. So no overhead, anything for me. So that kind of changed a little bit from, you know, what I used to do. Then, but I could still deadlift, I could still squat, I could still do all that stuff. And in 2019, I was getting ready for the Arnold Classic. And it was going to be me versus Zokowitz. You know, me and Mike were, you know, two pros. Of course, Mike's 5 years younger than me, which helps him. But, and there was no hammer, which helps Mike. Because, you know, Mike wasn't always the greatest in the hammer. So going to the Arnold, I was really training hard. I mean, man, was I pushing the envelope. And I did an old Pavel contrast train where you hit a really heavy dead for a double and then, you know, 3 box jumps, rest 4 minutes, go again. Everything was going good. I get my first deadlift up. It's a little bit over 600. I pop it up. Everything felt great. Technique was great. I go back down, touch, get ready to come back up. Halfway, pop. Hear a loud pop. Resonates through my whole body. I dropped the bar. I dropped to my knees. And I looked around. I was like, oh, shit. So about 3 or 4 hours later, I was in some immense pain. Next morning, I couldn't walk. So I'd herniated a disc all the way over, and it immediately, and this is so crazy, immediately my left leg had started to atrophy, like my left quad, and it's still got some atrophy, you know, my teardrop. So once that happened, I had to change everything. Everything had to change. So a couple years of, you know, just lifting. I didn't stop lifting. I kept working out, doing stuff. So this year, after 2 years of bodybuilding, which bore me to death. How in the hell these guys do this after year after year, I don't know. Because I would rather get kicked in the nutsack than do bodybuilding workouts. I mean, dude, talk about, I know why dudes do bodybuilding. It's mostly because they've got some kind of issue. So I switched back when I knew I was going to do the game in February and started doing more dynamic work. Even though it's hard for me to do dynamic work because I can't push off on this right side. So you can imagine doing jumps are a bit lopsided. But, you know, I created a stimulus to where I was doing more explosive work and love it. I fell back in love with, being an athlete or trying to be an athlete again, even though it was poor. Then I told myself, you've got to throw more. So I've got to get used to that weight. And you would not believe how much pressure is on your right foot when that weight swings back and comes back around, to push off and do stuff. It's absurd. It's crazy. But so my training's changed a little bit. I just can't do the crazy stuff I used to. Like I'll never put, 500 or 600 pounds on my back again. And when I had my back surgery, the doctor said, you can go back to lifting. He said, but if you go back to lifting the way you were, I'll probably see you in another 4 or 5 years. I said, okay. So hence, that's why I kind of went to bodybuilding. And I don't regret that. I learned a ton about myself and about the sport and nutrition doing that. But the new style of training I'm doing now involves, it's about I've got one day that's just a dynamic day, leg day. So I'm doing a lot of jumps and, those kind of things on that day. We've got some specialty machines in the gym that I use for being explosive, banded stuff, do a lot of banded work. And that really helps me with my athletes. So when I'm training as an athlete, I'm a better coach. So I've gotten back to that for the last 5 or 6 weeks. And I got to tell you, I've fallen in love with that, doing that. But like I said, that's what's really changed. And that's why I work with a lot of masters athletes. If you're not a masters athlete, you don't really understand. When I was in my 30s, I could do anything. When I hit 43, the wheels fell off this vehicle. And I had to, switch some things around then. But each year, you got to kind of change some stuff and tweak some stuff around. But that's kind of where I'm at now.
No, that's awesome to kind of hear. I mean, it sucks to have a blowout like injury like that, but as unfortunate as it is, a lot of people that like went into it and like just kind of rode it till the wheels came off and they were training hard or they were competing in something or pushing the envelope. Those people that usually come from an injury and try to like find a new purpose or a new way to kind of get back in it and almost reinvent themselves in a different method, you start to realize that there's a lot more ways that you can do this. There's a lot more takeaway points that you can bring to your athletes because you're a coach.
Yep.
And yeah, it sucks to kind of have your athletic career like take such a big shift when it comes to yourself. But because you're a coach, you realize like you kind of see the silver lining in it and be like, okay, well, now I can help these athletes that are going through injuries. Like I know what it feels like. Like I'm getting up there in age. Now I know what masters athletes were, because when you're younger, you can kind of just point at the old guys and be like, man, it must have been nice back in the day when you were still throwing this. But when you get up there and like you see like Ching or you see some of these like guys that are like, I was like, I didn't know there was a masters division for like 70 plus, and these guys are still yanking it. I was like, hey, it's crazy to see, but like,
Yes.
yeah, everything needs to change, and you really don't know what they're experiencing or what they go through until you kind of get up there.
Yep.
I know that you wrote a book, like basically training for the masters athlete yourself too. What kind of stands out, or what is really, you talked about the volume has to decrease, but don't give away too much of the book because people can go out and get that if they really want to compete. But what maybe kind of aside from volume is something big that you think people need to be aware of if you're going to be a competitive like masters athlete, whether it be in Highland Games or maybe something else as well?
Well, in Highland Games specifically, what I find is throwing volume. When you go out and I know this has had to happen to you because it happens to everybody. You go out and let's say that you had a great 28 weight for distance practice a week ago, and you're feeling good about yourself. And you go out today and, oh my God, I'm falling down. I'm all over the place. It's, you know what I'm talking about. people will still, and I did it. And I always will tell people, listen, I failed twice at everything because I'm too stupid to figure it out the first time. So I have failed so you can actually succeed in what you're wanting to do. So I would keep throwing, and looking back, I'm like, you idiot. Shut it down, go to something else, or just stop. It just meant you weren't hitting any position. Your body was out of whack, and now I run the risk of getting hurt. Now for masters, there's where we have the problem. Our masters athletes, I send them, hey, this is how many throws you're doing with this, and with this. And before that, I'll look and I'll be like, 27 throws at the 42. Are you just trying to hurt yourself? So we only have so many throws in us. And, and I learned this from Ryan. There's only so many big throws we have. And that's why I never used them up in a game unless if I knew I could win without having to go dig deep, I would do that. And I learned that from Ryan is don't go digging deep for that big throw if we don't have to. Because in the pros then, there was a pride and a money issue. And you were always trying to make a dollar, but you were always trying to make sure that, you could try to get that win too. But a lot of these guys will try to throw at 100% every throw in their practice. That to me is where a lot of people go wrong, because if you're not throwing it 100% correct, then we're just reinforcing that bad habit. Reinforce that bad habit. Head down on stone. Head down on stone. And the harder you try to throw stone, the worse your technique's going to get. So those are, and that's not really in the book. In the book I've got a full section of cues, drills, all kinds of different stuff, and even the weight training. Now, the volume for weightlifting, if you're lifting, is I use it as how much time you have, how much stress you have. So when I send out my questionnaire, what's your stress levels? If you're in a really high stress job, I'm going to get you in and out of the weight room in about 40 minutes because your body doesn't know what stress is. It's that's work stress. It's different than weightlifting stress. It doesn't know that. It's just stress. So I think a lot of times people try to push through stuff, and I understand why they're doing it, but you're just making things worse. And I think it's hard for people, and it was for me, to be like, let me just shut this down and I'll come back another day and do this. Because you're competing against yourself right then and there. You want to get better. And Nick, I've been on throw 21 on a stone and be like, you know what? Maybe today ain't my day. And just stop. So those are two things: is your stress level from every day will dictate your volume, and your your throws volume. And like I told you with going out there with Ryan, once we got done working out, we just chilled. We were laid out in recliners, snacking, watching Wheel of Fortune. I mean, it was an easy day. So it was low stress. So that's I would say those two right there are your biggest.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's I've seen it too with Olympic weightlifters too. Like everybody's like, why are they like just sitting down? Why do you allow chairs in the facility? It was like they just did a 200-kilo clean and jerk. Like that is ridiculously difficult. Yeah, he's gonna go sit down for 6 minutes. Let him relax and like get everything down. And like I know the old like Cal Strength and like Penlay's like group of guys, they would just like go play video games and relax the rest of the day, eat big, lift big, and then know when your highs are high, keep them high, and then lows, bring them back down. But that's interesting to hear, like on the master side, because a lot of the things that you talk about are the same things. Like stubbornly, yeah, it took me a while to realize it, but for training solo for as many years as I had, like pretty much my whole collegiate career coaching, it's been training by myself, whether it be in my storage unit, at the field, or in my garage. And it's a constant like battle in my head of, hey, stupid, like shut it down, or hey, are you just being
Yeah.
soft today? And like, are you trying to talk your way out of it? It's a very fine line that you have to walk. And I realized like in strongman, it's like, all right, you got to be smart because you got to clean this up. And at the same time, like you can't hurt yourself on this. So decrease the volume and get something good out of it, or drop the weight and get a little volume and then live to fight another day. For Highland Games, it's
Exactly.
like, hey, you don't need to do 50 throws if 49 of them suck, thinking that the 50th is going to be the one that's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't want those bad habits. So that's perfect. That's perfect for anybody that trains alone or that's
Yeah.
learning it, or anybody that's in a master's kind of level, or even guys that are cutting weight that want to like drop down, because your technique changes if you're adding or
Oh, yeah.
decreasing weight.
Oh, yes. Uh, that's a really good point. Is your weights, if and I'd say about a 10-pound allowance. Like if you've lost about 15 or 20 pounds, it'll change the way you throw. One year I was 265 throwing, and man, did it change. Now, my hammers were fantastic, but my weight for distance struggled because I didn't have that mass. Uh, Seemingly enough, at 305 was my prime throwing weight. So what you just said makes it is a 100% truth. That weight does make a difference.
Hey, well, I wanted to shift to this because we talked a lot about like obviously the book, your throwing career, and like your own experience like competing and training. But like we talked about, and it's been sprinkled in for everything, you've been a coach for a long time, and you've been working with some of your teammates in the very beginning, which I'm sure you didn't have a strength coach when you were in college at all.
Mm.
And just kind of learning bits and pieces, and you've been personal training for a long time. And then I for 11 years you've had Darkside Athletics. So, like, what kind of prompted you to start the gym and like bring all your athletes like under one roof? I know you still work with clients online and you do a lot of training techniques and stuff with athletes that are spread across the country, but specifically, what drove you to open up the gym, and like what motivates you to continue training while you're there?
So to open up the gym, that was probably prompted uh, by a kid I had in college. He was a teammate of mine, and he had 2 summers with me and a roommate of mine, and he lifted with us, and we taught him everything he knows about lifting. And he ended up moving to Portland, Oregon, got a really good job at Duke Energy. Um, and then he moved down into, I think he was moved into Houston area. Yeah, he was in Houston. Well, while he was there, he opened up a couple of CrossFit gyms. Now, I will say this: if you like CrossFit, that is fine and dandy. If you think CrossFit is the end all be all, then you're an idiot. If you think CrossFit is great for athletes that aren't endurance athletes, you're an idiot. There is a time and a place for CrossFit workouts, and every CrossFit's going to be a little different. If you've got a CrossFit owner that's a marathon runner, guess what? You're going to have a lot of running in there. If your power lifter guy is the CrossFit owner, then you're probably going to have a lot of power lifts. But so he was owning CrossFits, and he was like, man, you should open up a CrossFit. And I was like, last time I checked, dude, I'm still straight. All right. So I'm not opening up a CrossFit gym. And he was like, no, you don't understand the money of it. Now, at this time, Mark Valeni, my good friend, had opened a CrossFit gym, and he had already told me I need to do this. And I told Mark that I wasn't going to do it. I'm not selling out. Well, then I see Mark making all this money. And then I started talking to my buddy, and we kind of get it set up. Now, Darkside Athletics had already kind of started. It really wasn't a brand, but the thing was, Valeni and I talked a lot about training because Mark was a strength and conditioning coach up in Cleveland area. And he trained a lot of athletes and stuff out of his garage, kind of like I was training kids out of the gym I was working in. And neither one of us believed in what was I guess, the norm of strength and conditioning, speed ladders, a lot of other hokey pokey stuff that people do. And he and I both it was kind of a mutual thing. We came up with this, we're kind of the dark side of training. So I came up with Darkside Athletics, and it kind of stuck. And at that time, I was training 3 college teams at this little small college over here. I was training girls basketball, girls softball, and men's basketball, and girls volleyball. Whenever the college kind of defuncted, I don't know if they ran out of money or what the deal was, but the college went belly up. Or before the college went belly up, I was actually training the softball girls at my new place. So I opened up an 1,800 square foot place. It was on the back side of the gym I already worked at. They just had an empty shell. And so I just put down concrete. I threw down mats. $16,000 later, with a rogue rig and a bunch of other stuff, I started, Darkside CrossFit. Did that for a year. That's kind of how it started. And then I was bringing in athletes in the afternoons, working out with them. I used to have a joke that would say, if the athletes if you're not working hard doing what you're doing, I'll kick you out, because I don't make any money on my athletes. I can't say that anymore, because now, yesterday, Mel and I had about 25 athletes between us. So we had about 25 athletes in the gym, and it was crazy. But that's how I started. That's how Darkside Athletics started, was actually as a CrossFit gym. And a year goes by, and I said, why am I paying these fools $3,000 a year so I can use their stupid name? So I asked most of my members why they joined. The oversounding thing was, we knew we could get you as a coach, but cheaper than you are as a personal trainer. And I said, okay. So I cut all ties with CrossFit. I do not believe in a lot of the stuff that they do, but I use a lot of their workouts to condition, like my soccer girls. I take a big pride in taking my kids, when they go back to school for their conditioning test, that they absolutely kill them, demolish them. And they do. And I take pride in that. So we use a lot of different modules for that. I use strongman circuit training. I'll do CrossFit. We'll do high intensity training. We do all kinds of different stuff with that. But that's kind of how the start of that went. Now, as far as the other question was, how do I keep myself motivated to train? Was that the question, Nick?
Yeah, well, it was more, I guess I'll kind of rephrase it as this, because like Darkside has been around for over a decade. I'd more
Yep.
so, I'd like to like rephrase it as like, what has changed like within it. You already talked about it, going from CrossFit into like just basically being Darkside Athletics, like yourself.
Yeah.
So
the big change on that was, we were an 1,800 square feet building, and it was on the back side of the gym. And the way that I had this worked out was that the people would pay, they would pay me their CrossFit or their Darkside membership, and then I gave a portion of that to the gym. The gym had to do nothing. Like, they just had to do nothing. So they were getting away with, they were like a bandit, but it worked out well. Then the guys running the gym didn't run it very well, and I was going to have to find a new place like that super fast. Panic set in, and I'm going all over town looking, and it's like anywhere, Nick, if you're renting a building, you're going to pay. Well, I found this just about run down 5,000 square foot building that had a giant parking lot with potholes everywhere in it and a big yard. And I'm like, this is it. So I look inside, it's a disaster. Outside's a disaster. But I saw something else. I saw the vision. I saw this is going to be, and we evolve yearly. When we first started out, we were still doing a lot of classes. We didn't call them CrossFit, but we were still doing a morning class and an evening class. And then I kind of moved away from that, and we got rid of our evening classes a little bit because we just didn't have as many people coming, and I didn't push it as much. And I started getting more athletes. So we started getting more athletes coming in, and then I started changing my gym around. So if you look at old pictures of my gym when it first started at this new place, our new location, it's all mats. And then about 3 years in, I found somebody that had a big, long piece of turf. And I took the mats out of the middle and put our turf down the middle. And that's kind of where we're at now. So we have more, I've got more area to do more athletic stuff with my kids. But the parking lot's the plus because I have a huge parking lot. So I laid turf down on parts that didn't have pothole. So I've got turf outside and inside. So when the summer gets here in the spring, we open the doors and our kids are training outside, inside, they're everywhere. So it works out really good. So that transition, we're now about to where we want to be. We do personal training, we do athlete training, and I write programs for people. So people will come in and I'll have a program written out for them for the month, and they pay me to write their program out and do the system. And while I'm there, I coach them, if I'm there, during the day or whatever, and I'm available for any questions or anything like that to have. So it's almost like kind of like online training, but here in-house. So that's where we're at now. And I think that's probably our niche. We might have maybe 30 regular members, maybe. I also charge more than every gym in town to discourage people from wanting to be a member at Darkside. I know that sounds crazy. However, cheap gym members get you cheap people. And when you have cheap people, I bet you $100, they don't care about your belt squat. They don't care about your cables or bands or anything else they're using. They tear it all to hell. And that's why you got so many people that, do their home gym stuff. For that reason, I don't have to mess with all that stuff. So my motto is first all's athletes and personal training. That's the very first thing we hit. Then I'll have a few, stragglers, old buddies of mine that lifted at the old place. I'll let them lift there, but we've got maybe 30 members total. Because when I tell people I don't want gym members, they look around like, I thought you owned a gym. It's not that kind of gym, bro. It's just different. And if you come to my gym, Nick, and you're seeing people work out, 100%, man, I'm not at LA Fitness. I'm not at, I have strong men, I have strong women, powerlifters, endurance athletes, all kinds of people train at my gym. But the people that train there train. They're not there getting a workout in. They're training. And everybody's pretty serious. You won't see anybody walking around hitting their phones. You won't see any of the stuff you see at the local gyms. You won't find there at Darkside.
That's awesome. That's great to see like it grow and like, again, kind of like the injury that you sustained, like getting pushed out. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise to be able to upgrade and be out on your own and get a bigger facility. But it's crazy to kind of, as coaches, we see like that vision, and while everybody else sees like a dump hole and like maybe just a money pit of a gym, but you've been able to like scrap and work and get it to the place it is. And it's the same as like becoming pro, like after all those years, it's the same as gym ownership. It took you 11 years and then all the time before Darkside opened up to get to that point. And I think a lot of people like just want to get to the point. They don't want to work on the process and like actually go through the struggle of it. And it's a lot of that. And you can learn from people, but you still have to go and experience a lot of those things yourself.
Yes.
The question I had for you was like, honestly, like I understand it like too. Like when I get into a new place or I have a new team, like I see it and I get excited about the vision. The big thing though, when you go in and you own a gym, and I'm speculating since I don't own a gym, but hopping into this stuff, you want to keep that vision together and you want it to be a certain way. How do you like keep what's in your mind and what you imagine for the gym and like what you want the culture to be and the environment to be while still maintaining the lights, because it's a business. And like you said, you jumped into the CrossFit thing in the beginning, realized like, hey, this isn't for me. That's a big business decision both ways, like to pay for it, but also to know that at that time you were going to get a lot of people in the door because it said CrossFit and you got out of it and now you're branching out on your own. How do you balance between, hey, this is Darkside Athletics, this is what the atmosphere, the culture, the environment's going to be, but also the business side of, hey, I still have to like pay people, I have to pay the bills. Like this needs to cover my vision. How do you balance the two, if that makes sense?
Well, so the first part is you have to find a place. Your overhead has to be as low as possible. If, and I've seen, and I'm not picking on CrossFit gyms, I swear I'm not, but I've seen CrossFit gym owners, they will go in and they'll spend 30 grand and buy tons of equipment and you don't have a member yet. And it baffles me. I'm like, so I'm a horrible business person. Like I'm the worst person to have, but I'm a hell of a people person. And that's what saves me, especially when it comes to personal training and other stuff. So in order for us to thrive and keep going, we've always got to be trying to do something, extra. If I always say, if you're not moving forward, we're sitting still. And in this business, if you're sitting still, we're going to be in trouble. I was looking at maybe trying to purchase a much larger building, so we could do more stuff. Didn't work out. So we're still at my 5,000 square foot place, which is fine. But I knew that, hey, if I'm not going to do this one way or the other, I'm going to have to get more personal training clients and more athletes if I'm not going to push the classes. And the reason I don't push, we have one class in the morning we do at 5:30. And the reason I don't push that, big reason is, Nick, I've gotten lazy. I don't want to be there at 5:30 every morning. And if I'm pushing classes, then I get, Margie down the street here who ain't moved in 22 years. Oh, she can't squat. Oh, she can't get down the floor. Oh, she can't do. So now it makes my job super hard because now that's turned into personal training. That's where I make my big money, is the personal training stuff. So the classes are, mine's $85 a month. $85 a month, and you can come unlimited every morning. And I email you the workouts. So I email you the workouts every week of what we're going to do. And then my people will come in, they put their workout on the board, and they do it. So it is just kind of like CrossFit class. And then I'll show up and coach if I need to. But that model I saw kind of disappearing, because in a town like mine, and you've got to know your demographic. If I was in Chicago, I'd probably have stayed CrossFit, because everyone knows, okay, we're going to get a high intensity workout if we go to CrossFit. The big niche that I have here is that in 1999, when I got here, I was coaching football at the Catholic school here in town at Bethlehem High School. So I was in with a lot of parents. A lot of the kids, or a lot of the adults that I'm having come back work out with me now, were my high school kids. And I've actually got one of my high school kids came in the other day with his 14-year-old son, and I'm now training him. So the advantage I've had that most people don't have is I'm so well known in town of what I do, that I have people that come from 25 miles away to train here. Just the other day on my Instagram, if you look, last week, Octavius Oxendine came down, and Ox had been training with me since he was 14, but he lives, 30 miles from here. But his coach and I went to college together, and his coach and I go on our Key West trip together. And when he got this kid, he knew he was going to be special. And he said, hey, I want you to train this kid, teach him everything. So I've had him since he's 14 years old. He's now at UK as a starting defensive tackle. And God willing, we're going in the draft next year. So just being known has made it, much easier. And then people will see that when I'm working with these people. Now, one thing I've had to do that I hate doing, that Matt Vincent did a good job of, that I hated him for, was self-promotion. Matt was self-promoting 15 years ago. He would self-promote himself better than anybody. And I hate it. I can't stand it, Nick. I hate it because I feel like I'm bragging on myself, or I feel like I'm being arrogant. But if you don't do that, then you don't have business. So in owning a gym, and for my model is I keep the cost very low. So if you come to my gym in the winter, it's going to be about 55, 60 degrees maybe. Bars are going to be cold. You come to my gym in the summer, you better bring some water because it's going to be about 90 degrees in the afternoon. I don't run air. I've got heat up front, and that's about it. So I keep everything down. The other thing I do is I don't overextend. Oh, I like that piece of equipment. I like that piece of equipment. I'm going to buy them all. Nope. How much money have I got? I'm going to buy that one. 6 months later, I'll buy that one. So now this I will brag about. I'm very proud of this. There's not one thing in that gym that I don't own outright. I owe nothing. I have no debt for my gym. And I think that's a big key. And I think that's where people mess up. And that, to my point earlier, you'll see these CrossFit gyms spend 40 grand and not have one member. So I took a different approach where it's like, let me get enough money to buy this. And I learned that from my mom and my grandmother growing up was, we were poor. And I mean, we were poor. So everything was about survival. So I still kind of have that mentality. So I don't go out and just throw the credit card down and buy stuff. I make sure I've got the money for it before I purchase it.
Yeah, that's great. There's some necessary evils when it comes to gym ownership, but those are some great points. Like self-promotion, I hate that stuff as well. Like I don't enjoy it. And it's like the same for the podcast. Like no one's gonna know if you don't actually kind of let people know. I'd love to get to the point where I just like dish it off to someone else. Like, hey, just will you post this stuff? Because then it doesn't feel as ugly to me like to do it. But it's huge. And I know when Matt started it, it was kind of the same way where it was just a way for him. I remember him talking about it. It was a way for him to show guys he was competing with, like, hey, here's my technique. This is what I've been doing this week. And it just grew and grew and grew into something else. And he's obviously different from where it all began, but like that was the inception of it. And to kind of see the same way with like how the gym has grown for you, and like to realize like, hey, if I want to keep this sustainable, these are the kind of key things I need to stick to. And you stayed true to yourself. And like, look, you can keep the lights on forever. And that's the best part about, I think, having your own gym and owning it and owning everything in it too. You can turn the people away that you don't think embody what is going to happen in the gym. And because you have such like a loyal like fan base and like whatever if you want to call them Darkside members, whatever they are, it just it's a better way to cultivate it and like keep that culture growing, because you don't get any of the bad seeds. And if you do, you can just get rid of them real quick.
Yeah, we really Mel and I do a really good job, and we've got another trainer, Chris Sanders, and Chris is one of our trainers that I'll have to say he has a special coaching ability that I don't know if I have. He is so good with special needs kids. He has 2 kids that are competitive powerlifters right now, and they'll be competing April 6th down in Tennessee at one of the Special Olympics powerlifting meets, and he does a great job with them. And when I say they're dark side kids, they're dark side kids. So when Mel and I talk, and we'll say, okay, this kid, and if she says, oh, these kids are made for dark side, that tells me they're going to work hard, they're energetic, and they're going to get down on the process. We've had 1 or 2 kids that we've said, Mom, you're wasting money. And that's been it. Because I tell every parent when they call me, hey, this ain't little Johnny's daycare time. He's going to work. He may get cussed, he may get yelled at, and I promise you he will get his feelings hurt at some point. So if those are things that's going to bother you and him or you and her, then I'd suggest you might want to look elsewhere. I'm very upfront because biggest thing is, Nick, I don't want some kid going home and telling mom and dad that I yelled at them because they were, doing something or goofing around. And then I get a call from the parents. So if I get a call from a parent, I'll be like, you knew, I've already told you what was going to happen. So I've never had an issue with that. That's not saying I won't, but I've never had an issue with that. And I'll say this real quick before we move on, is I actually had a mom and her son come in today. He's in Georgetown College, a football player. And he was with me for about 2.5 years during high school. And she brought him in. He'd had an injury. He was just getting over it. And he wanted to see about coming back in the summer. And his mom said his mindset and his physical appearance were so much better when he was with you. And I really, really, really enjoyed her saying that because it made me feel good. Like, all right, I'm doing exactly what I need to, especially when she said mindset. And that is another thing that we do is we try to get these kids to believe in themselves. And especially our girls, man, to get those girls to really have self-confidence. And I say that, and I've got a couple that I've went overboard with. They're quoting stuff that I would say, and that scares the hell out of me because I'm like, y'all need to quote someone else. Don't be quoting me like that. But those are, that's the kind of stuff that we like to see and hear. And what you just said a minute ago, building on that culture.
That's awesome. That's to instill confidence, especially in young athletes and like just young individuals. That's huge. And I think that's a big, like, it's a byproduct of sports and athletics that people don't realize. Like there's so many character traits and there's like developmental things that you learn, teamwork, just like time management skills. Like there's so many different things you learn from athletics as a byproduct.
Yes.
And to do it in your like kind of formidable years, like when you're young, and then be surrounded by people that are genuinely out there like for your betterment and hold you accountable to those things like you guys are doing there. I think that's awesome. So that's great to hear. And like I'm glad the gym is still going strong. So hey KO, like any good training session, we end the show with the finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and maybe overtime at the end. So, hey, you can go as fast as you want, or if you got a story or something you need to share with it, have at it. But you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in coaching, and I probably already know it, but biggest influence in Highland Games.
It'll surprise you. I'm going to say Brett Underwood because he's the guy that when I got into the gym, he was a no frills dude. He taught me how to work in the gym. He taught me what the weight room meant and what it could mean and what the weight room could do for me, not just as an athlete, but as a person. Discipline, again, working that process, going through tough times, the gym's always there. He taught me the iron will never lie to me. And he introduced me to the sport. I would have never known anything about this sport. I wouldn't have gotten into it. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for him. So I owe him more than he'll ever know, and would probably never be able to repay him for what he's done, because if you look at what I'm doing now and what I've done, it just resonates of everything that I learned from him.
I love it. Hey, so when you're not in the weight room, you're not out on the field, whether it's throwing or being an AD or just out there kind of promoting anybody that's actually out on the field, what are you doing? Like, what are some of your hobbies outside of training and competing?
Well, that takes up pretty much all of it. So I would say me and Mel have our little hobby where we like to go on Saturday nights. We started this especially when we're bodybuilding because we would have our cheat meal. But and we'll do it sometimes during the week, is we'll say, okay, we need a Darkside meeting. that means it's a couple of beers and a meal. So that would probably be it. We like to, me and her both like to sit and we'll be working on stuff and watch a show. But other than that, travel. We like to travel and see other stuff. Part of the reason I loved Highland Games is I got to travel all over the place. But probably it not anything groundbreaking. Reading, but that comes with the territory. I try to read at least 45 minutes to an hour a day of something training related.
All right. I mean, that takes up a good chunk of time with all those things.
Yeah.
Hey, so if you weren't coaching, what do you think you might be doing as a profession? And if you could go pro in any sport besides Highland Games, what would you pick?
I mean, I think on this profession. Sport, I would have definitely said the NFL. I'd have loved to be in the NFL. Loved football growing up. Still love football. And I love college football more than I do the NFL. But I just love that sport and, coaching in it for so many years. So my profession, I would say probably be a high-level Division I college coach somewhere, either an assistant or a head coach. I do not want to be a strength and conditioning coach anywhere near college or NFL teams. They're too restrictive. You can't really do your own thing. So I wouldn't want to do that. But as far as like if I could coach some X's and O's, that would probably be my other profession.
There you go. I would second that on the college side. sometimes definitely restrictive. Hey, so it's probably changed, and you could pick from any time period, but ideal training day for yourself. What is playing in the weight room on the speakers, and what is your best or favorite post-training meal?
Well, so I'll go with the post-training meal first is nothing. I'm fasted whenever I train. I've done it for years. I feel bloated and slow if I have a meal. Now, if I might have like a protein bar or something at 8 o'clock and then train at noon or something, but I never put my food very close to my training. And my bodybuilding coach is going to be really mad. I had for 2 years because he always would have a post meal. Now I couldn't eat it. Like I just don't train as well. Crap. What was the other question?
What's your go-to music during training?
Go-to music. Not that. So me and my boy Scotty was my training partner all through my Highland Games stuff. And in my book, it says he was the best training partner I could have ever asked for because he was that guy that if I had 400 on the bar, he would whisper to me, I bet Dan McKim's got 405, or I bet Vieira did that faster, or I bet Craig Smith did such and such. So, that's having him in my ear all the time. He's a great training partner. So saying that, what me and him would love to listen to is we would always put on some kind of hardcore rap because mostly it would make everybody else in the gym mad. But biggest guys play the music. So we always had our hardcore rap going, and it might be, no telling what it might be. We might go way back and be Beastie Boys or Two Live Crew or anything like that. And then, we might hit some Nelly or 50 Cent or who knows. But that's what we'd have playing.
I like the rule too. Like, yeah, the biggest, strongest guys in the room get to pick the music. So hey,
that's the rule.
Last one I got for you for overtime. What would you, in your opinion, what would be the number one piece of advice you would give someone who has never thrown in the Highland Games that is interested in throwing?
Let's see. I would say make sure you really, really enjoy this. Make sure you like it. And, try to make sure you want to try to get better at this. Make sure it's something that you really want to do because most of the time people say, how do I get into the games? And I say, don't, unless, you want to have injuries here, hurt there. But all that if someone was to say, well, do you think you hurt your back from training? I'd say, no. And what would you do different? I would train harder. So for the Highland Games, I would tell people, if you're just starting out into it, make sure you enjoy it. Make sure it's something you really enjoy. And most people do, if they have any kind of athletic background, they really enjoy the games and I would tell them, enjoy the people. We have some of the best people in this sport. Name me a time that that you could lay your wallet on the ground with your bag with hundreds of dollars in it and it never be bothered for 8 hours that day. You can't, but you can at a Highland game. So we have the greatest people and a diverse bunch of people, lawyers, doctors, teachers, trainers. It's just such a diverse group that I think that's what I would say is enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's definitely one of the big reasons why I continue to come back and like meeting people like yourself and like competing with guys and sharing the field. And some people go and don't even throw that day, or they hop up and end up throwing a crazy wob number. The people in it are so much fun to hang around with and be a part of it. And you better enjoy it if you're going to be out in the sun and you're going to bake for 12 hours or it's going to piss rain on you.
Yes.
If you don't have a smile on your face, like you can have a bad day throwing, but if you don't enjoy like your time there, it's a waste, because for anybody that's not pro, you're paying to go there and you're paying to compete and you're paying to sit there. You're paying for a sheaf fork. You're paying for nonsense stuff. You better enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, well, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on today. This is I'm glad we got to share the field together, and I'm glad that we got to make this happen. For anybody that's got any questions for you, or in the Kentucky area and want to check out Darkside Athletics or want to get some throwing technique advice and utilize you as a coach, where can they follow along and get a hold of you?
So you got a couple outlets there. Get on my Facebook, just my Kerry Overfelt page, and you can just send me a direct message on there. You can also go to Darkside Athletics on Instagram. You can type my name in or Darkside Athletics, and it should pop up, and you can direct message me on there if you need to. I don't mess around on Twitter too much because I just can't read all the political dribble anymore, but I'm on Twitter every now and then, so you could probably shoot me a message on there. It's pretty easy to get a hold of me if anybody, wanted to.
Awesome. Hey, well, like I said, appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we share the field again soon and you break some more records from last February. Hey, from February.
It'd be my record. It would be a record, that's for sure. Not the way I was going.
I appreciate it, KO. We'll talk soon.
Awesome, Nick. Thank you for having me on.
Of course.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.